Great, because I'm going to be using this. Hopefully, I'm going to put it to YouTube. Hopefully today or tomorrow. Um, Hopefully, we just don't run into any errors or issues. But I would like to also put this on YouTube for everyone. There was a few other people that signed up, but I guess nobody really likes attending live, which is cool with me. So all good. But thank you for coming today, for creating your first digital space in 3ds Max. And my name's Nathaniel, and I'm the founder of Digital Spaces. So this is really just for you two attending today. Feel free to really stop me at any time and ask questions. I mean, as you can see, this is a really small audience, so uh, this would be totally be your time to ask. Do not worry about interrupting me at all, and you can just ping it in the chat. I'll have that open the whole time. And then a recording of this will be available soon. Hopefully, still today. I'll put it on YouTube. If not, just tomorrow morning. So a little bit just about myself and the team over here, because I know we're pretty quiet, or at least I am. Uh, my name's Nathaniel Capasio, and I'm originally from Chicago and trained as an architect. And I fell in love with visualization and ArcViz in college, which, the more Viz artists I talk to, that seems to be a popular, common occurrence of us all. And it was really just as soon as I found out that ArcViz was a career and people were paid money professionally to draw architecture, I was like, yep, I'm done with architecture. I'm doing that. That's really what I wanted to do this whole time. I just didn't even know it existed. It existed. And then from there, I worked in Los Angeles for a few years at a 3D visualization studio who really taught me 3ds Max and V-Ray and Corona. And I worked there for about 2 years, and then I started Digital Spaces on my own, just really doing that as a studio. A lot of freelance work, was working with a few artists for some time, really pre-pandemic, and I've been doing that for 6 years professionally. And then for the past, I guess, 4 years now, really since the pandemic, is when I started moving away from being an artist, doing freelance work or studio work, and moving towards building digital spaces as a platform for everyone to make their own. Because originally I was just making these internally for clients and I just was coding on my own, doing this internally. Then I made the decision where it's like, hey, we need to open this up to the whole industry for everyone. It shouldn't just be me making these. And so that was about in 2020. I started that. And I've been working with Oleg now. He's the lead developer on the project for, I think we're coming up on 2 years we've been together. And he really manages just about everything on the platform, coding wise, say. It's like I'm still doing high level design on everything. I'm still doing a lot of the 3D kind of modeling and working with the 3D files. But he is the whiz at the moment, taking care of all of that. And he's located in Germany. And then a great way to contact me is just my email. This is my personal email. I love talking to users. I love hearing feedback. I think that comes from my architecture training, where it's like, I don't mind a critique. Be honest with me about how you feel about things. If there's any issues, concerns, or anything, I am on it. And I love talking with everyone because really, we are a small team. And the only way for me to really know that there is an issue is if somebody brings it up. So never, never be shy on that. I'm always here to help. And anytime you're inside the platform, in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a live chat, which doesn't go to some bot and it doesn't go to some team and somewhere else. It really goes to my phone and it goes to me. I am the one you chat with in there. And so if there's ever a delay in response, just give me a minute. Maybe I'm not on my phone or I'm on a call. Oh, we actually have one more person attending. Hey, welcome. Thanks for attending. I was just going through the introduction here, so haven't missed much. I'm just gonna move right along. Uh, So if I ever don't respond in the chat in the bottom right hand corner, just give me a minute or maybe ping me again. And if that doesn't work, email me. Otherwise, there's always help.digitalspaces.io. This is a new page that we just built, and I'll go into this a little bit more in the presentation. But this is really where you'll find all of our documentation and our help center. So if you have any general questions, maybe look at there first and then ping me. And then also, I think really everyone has found us through Instagram, but at handle digitalspaces.io. And if you ever direct message through there, again, that really goes to me. I'm managing that. So these are good 4 ways to find me at all times. So just really about digital spaces, just what we believe in. And the main thing is in visualization, we believe architecture should be explored. I'm kind of sick and done with the way of doing still renderings where it's like, why are we only capturing a small area of the building when we're 3D modeling everything? Like we have the technology to explore architecture virtually. Why aren't we? Uh, and part of that is we also believe that with great visualization, it needs to tell a story. And the best visualization out there embraces that idea of storytelling. And we believe we have an opportunity to inspire creators to keep dreaming. Because if we can just inspire people to visualize more, that's great. Because visualization is the start of architecture, it's the start of design. That's where you can really explore, that's when you can really dream. And it's okay if some things never get built. It's us as creators to just keep dreaming and keep building. So, what is a digital space? Let's get out of this presentation and hop right in. And I guess if you're here, you've probably already seen this and you might know high level, but just in case you're new, digital space is a 3D rendering that you can walk around online. So nothing you see here is real. This was all 3D rendered through actually 3ds Max and Corona, which we'll be talking about today. And you could view a digital space on the internet through a web browser. And because we operate through a web browser, you can actually access a digital space from any device. We do not have a standalone application, and we actually don't really plan on building one. And the reason for that is just we found that it's really hard to get people to download an application. And for our clients, so us as architects or designers or visualizers, really our end clients are the public or the building owners. And we really want a way for people to view our renderings where for people to download an application, it's an extra step in the process, and that kind of scares people away. And so, internet browser, everyone has a device with the internet, so they can access that. And we also do not use any VR headsets for that exact same reason. And that's really because nobody really has them. And we don't want to limit the viewership of these experiences by pushing them to devices that nobody has. So we tried to take just the widest net we can possibly have on viewership, which is browser, work on every device, no headset, no standalone application. And then your digital spaces are stored in your account, in your dashboard. And so this is just my account. Probably looks the same as yours. I'll just have more projects in here. And this is how at any time you can come in and you can view your projects. And you can also share your projects with your clients through here as well. And when you share a project with your client, they actually get added to your organization and they can see the projects that you shared with them. And so if you do a lot of projects with a client, you can invite them as a guest. That means they're view only. And anytime they go to digitalspaces.io, they can see all the projects that you've done together. So that way they're not emailing you or texting you, being like, hey, do you have the link to this? I lost this. Where's this project? Whatnot. They really do that on their own. And then also for them, if they're at a dinner party or at a big meeting or doing whatever what they're doing to sell their building, they know that they always have access to the renderings as well. So when you go to edit a project, you as the account owner or the creator of the digital space can go and edit a project. And here I'm in the main project page of editing this project where you get a preview, a live preview of the project, and you can enter our scenes page, our design page, or right now you can also choose a plan. But the main thing I'm going to focus on right now really is the scenes page. So the scenes is where you upload your digital space. You can see here the scene has two things, the 3D model and 360 panos. And that's actually how a digital space is created. Those are the main two ingredients that go in to make one, is you'll need your 3D model and your 360 panos. And that actually is going to bring me to how it works. So a digital space is made of your 3D model and your 360 panos, but how do we actually make that? And we've broken it down into four main steps. And the first step would be in your 3D application of choice. In our case today, we're going to be talking about 3ds Max, is you're going to place your views, which are really your cameras. And you can see these black orbs here are the 3D cam or the 360 cameras that I set up in my scene to render from. So you choose the viewpoints that the users inside the experience are going to move to in 3ds Max by setting up your cameras. The second step is to render all of those cameras as 360 images, which are seen here. These are equirectangular maps with that have a 2:1 aspect ratio. The third step is to export your model, and that's as simple as file export. We accept USD models, DAE, and FBX. And then the last step is to upload. So just a little bit more behind the scenes how this is working is from your camera location, when you're inside of a digital space, what's actually happening is you're viewing at all times the 360 pano. So the 360 pano is being projected from the camera location inside your 3D model, and it's kind of like splattering all around you. So we're really viewing a 360 image, but then you can see as I move the cursor, we're kind of wrapping around these objects, and that's because we are inside your 3D model. But in order for us to work on the web and work on any device, we cannot just take your model from 3ds Max. That might be gigabytes. That could have hundreds of millions of pieces of geometry. So when you upload your model to digital spaces, we actually run it through an optimizer that we built that will reduce the model size, no matter how big it is, to 100,000 triangles. And I can show you here in our model. You'll see that this model is 99,929. So we'll bring it right under 100,000. So this model I originally uploaded was in the millions of polygons. We brought it down to 99,000 automatically. So then when you're standing inside the digital space, you're viewing that very lightweight model that has about 100,000 triangles, and what's being projected to it as a texture is that 360 image you rendered. And I can also show that here when I hop to this dollhouse mode. You can see there's this very lightweight model in the background, and then you can see kind of that splatter effect happen here. Where from that camera position, we're throwing out in all directions that 360 image. So I know that's a bit technical, but it's just easiest for me to describe things once I kind of lay it out from the foundation level of what's really going on. So we can move now into our four steps, which is step one is to place the views. And by placing the views, you really are in control as the artist, as the designer, as the storyteller of the visualization. And so we have here some helpful tools and hints and tricks to create a really great experience. The first thing is setting up your camera height. We have here some basic heights that you could use if you care to. Really, it doesn't matter. You can put your camera at any height you like, but we have found that this height here, which is about the same height that interior photographer with a tripod would capture at, which is just under eye level height. But this is we found to be a really great height for experiences. Then we also have just some other heights here, like if you're sitting, if you want to see the experience as a dog. And then here, what we mean by this, where it says grounded origin, is just make sure that these heights are from your floor, so from the ground. So if you're just in 3ds Max, don't just place your camera at 55 inches if your model is 20 feet in the air or it's below zero. So just make sure from the ground at wherever your ground is, go up on that. And then when you are setting up your cameras and views, be sure that they do connect. because users, when they're inside of a digital space, never really want to get stuck at all. They do want to be able to jump from place to place and always have multiple exits. And so be sure that your cameras can kind of see one another and that they can connect for a great user experience. Open up doors because again, we want users to know that they have this ability to move around. And so opening doors helps that tremendously. You can see here how we opened the door, but then we gave a peek in and you can see that there's a node in there. And so we're kind of giving this user uh, the ability to really see into the room and then to click in to explore that space. And then with stairs, just be sure that when you're dealing with stairs to put a node at the base and a node at the top. Once again, just giving users a really easy ability to be able to jump between stairs. And then lastly, when you're placing your views, we do ask that you set up your view names in 3ds Max, your camera names, starting with the prefix DS underscore, and it should end in a number. Now I'll show you that a little bit here. You can see that the camera that we're connecting to is DS underscore, and then I put in the name cam, so you can put in any name there, and then this ends in a number sequentially. And of course, get creative. Feel free to place your views really wherever you want and have fun with it. You're in control. So the next step then would be to render your images once you've set your cameras. And here you do need to render as 360 images or equirectangular maps. These traditionally have a 2:1 aspect ratio. And same thing when you name your cameras, you should name your images also with DS underscore and end in a number. And you can see that here we have this image name is called digital space 0000. So the same 0 of the image name matches to my camera 0. And you'll see same thing here. This 1 connects to the 1, which I guess I broke my own rule here. I called it digital space, not DS. But actually, on the images, the main thing is just the sequential number, really, that you would need. And you can see other examples here, how we can name those. And then we accept JPEGs and PNGs. We also do accept these XML types, but these are just for Enscape. So if you are an Enscape user and you're familiar with these XML types, we do accept those as well. And then we have some basic resolutions here, but same thing with like setting up your cameras, you really are in control. So you could render at whatever resolution you want to, just as long as it's in this 2:1 aspect ratio. So as long as the width is double than the height. But we do have these values here if you want to use these just like as a frame of reference or so as a starting point. So step 3 then is to export the model. And again, when you upload your model, we are going to optimize it to that 100,000 triangles. But a good thing to keep in mind when you're exporting your model is we're only using the model for these transitions when you move from point to point inside the experience. And so things that are really far away, like for instance, in this model, we did model in the background, like the homes, the vegetation, there's trees across the street. And then we put like so much detail into the pool vegetation, but we can't walk in the pool in this experience. And we don't walk outside in this experience. So there's really no reason for us to be exporting that geometry. Because we only have 100,000 triangles to work with, we shouldn't use that geometry on an area that a user is never going to explore in. So before you export your model, it is wise if you're doing interiors to turn off your site models, turn off anything outside of the windows and far away, because don't even bring that into digital spaces. So turn that off and really isolate your buildings. And if you did had multiple buildings on a site, you can export selected each of those buildings. And I can show you a bit later how that would work if you're dealing with multiple buildings, but try to keep them tight, small, and just what the user is going to be near. One more thing says if you are using V-Ray or Corona to use proxies, and you can see that here with the pool, all this pool vegetation was millions of polygons. But because we weren't walking close to it, there was really no need for us to bring that in. And so we set those proxies all to box and forest pack. And you can kind of view that here again in this dollhouse mode. If you really try to take a close look in the background, that's actually just boxes. There's no mesh on those. And so definitely utilize proxies because you even see here these chairs in the foreground. because these chairs had a bunch of these leather straps, if I get back in here, and these were really, really heavy pieces of geometry, there was no point for us because we only have this one node outside that users can move to. So why bring in all that geometry to optimize it? Because when you're moving around, users can't really tell that there's not a chair there and it's just a box. And so feel free to really simplify things with proxies. And then this one has killed me so many times over the years. Not forget to turn on your ceilings when you export. There's been tons of times where I brought in with no ceiling. And I mean, this goes with rendering too. I don't know if you've ever experienced an issue where you render a project. It's like, oh, my ceiling's off. So yeah, be sure to keep that on to render that and export it. Oh, and then also when you export, we need your cameras and we need your geometry. Those are the most important things. And so when you're exporting in 3ds Max, be sure that your cameras are not hidden. Uh, that way, when you bring it into us, it won't work if we don't have your cameras. Because that is how we generate these hotspot locations and how we become a no-code solution. So we're actually reading everything from your cameras. All right, so that's really the end, I guess, of the overall high-level presentation. Now I'm really going to jump into 3ds Max and I'm going to show you all of these steps and then we're going to upload a digital space together. But before I do that, are there any questions on this kind of like general overview or so? No questions. How would we treat elevators? I will show you how that is going to work. This actually might be something we can hop in right at the end too, because that's going to be just a tad bit more advanced. But we do separate. So here I'm in the main project page for this 135 Palisades, and then into the Scenes tab. We start you with one scene when you create a digital space, but you can add additional scenes. And actually, let me show you a live example of that, not on a project that has no scenes. And I actually have a great example with an elevator. Okay. This is a hotel we did, and we visualized the lobby and two different model room types. You can see here are the elevators, I guess. And so what you could do here is in the scenes tab, we have more than one scene. We have the hotel lobby and we have the model room and we have the shotgun room. And each of these, so the hotel lobby has this model mixed with these panos and they're linked together. The model room has its own 3D model and panos. And this is because in 3ds Max, we actually made these as completely separate 3ds Max scenes. So here we are in the model room. See, we had a lot of cameras in here. And then the shotgun room. And so because oftentimes we have these large projects where we have multiple 3ds Max scenes, or at times you might be doing a shopping mall or you're doing a project where you have one giant 3ds Max file with a bunch of XREFs. But also there, it's like, well, you don't want to bring in that whole model because we only have 100,000 triangles to work with. So your shopping mall is just going to be decimated on your poly count. And so you can do save selected for scenes. And so a scene, think of it as its own 3D model with its cameras, and then you can attach your panos to that. And so anytime you export a model, you can bring that into digital spaces as a new scene. And so here we have these three scenes, and then how they get combined is in the main digital space. So if we just go back to the project page here, this is how we can view the whole project together. And in the bottom left-hand corner is our menu. And from here, we could jump to the model room, or we can jump to the shotgun room. And so I guess to really answer the question is how would you treat elevators is you can have the elevators here. That's all great. But then if a user wanted to then jump from, say, the lobby to another floor, they would come down to the bottom left, and then they would enter into the next floor that you would like them to jump to. And then you, as the visualizer, would be setting that up by utilizing our scenes, by bringing in three or however many scenes you would need. Does Does that answer your question okay, or do you have more questions on that? Okay, so the question now is, so it's not necessarily a button on the wall that we can just jump to. And unfortunately not. And so the next thing though that we are going to be building, and you can see already us starting it in, let's see here, this view tab, are these interactive markers. And what we're trying to do first, and which has been like the biggest challenge, is just to get our model optimizer working, be able to read all the 3D files, to just make sure that like the base infrastructure of digital spaces is working really, really well. And I think we're there. We're kind of just wrapping that up. And so the first feature that we will be building are these interactive markers. And that would be in your model here. You would be able to come in and place markers. And with those markers, you can link those to an external website. You can bring up like an image gallery, or we would allow you the ability to jump scene to scene, because that has been something that other users have been requesting too. So it would be coming soon, but unfortunately right now we do not have that ability to say like click on a wall or a button on an elevator to jump to another scene. But hopefully in the next 3 months or so, we will actually have that working. That would be that would be the dream. That would be great. Any other questions so far? Okay, very cool. And so next thing I'm just going to mention is really our help center. I mentioned this earlier, but this is help.digitalspaces.io, and it can also be found on our main website, resources, documentation. And I'll just open it in a new tab. And I try to fill this out with really all of the information you would possibly need. A lot of the good stuff is going to be in the knowledge base. Like this will tell you how to set up your scenes, how to set up versions and locations, how to publish, how to embed, sharing. But I may have missed something in here, and I'm just kind of building this, as we go. And so, um, just one more note on this is that if you see anything that is wrong information in here, or I'm missing information, or you read it and you still have questions, please, please, please just chat me or email me. Let me know, and I will get it updated ASAP. We'll get the right solution and we'll get it updated in here. So this is like a living document. I'm always updating this. And another great resource would be we have a whole 3ds Max section. And this breaks it down in those same 4 steps that I started with, how to create a digital space in 3ds Max for Corona and V-Ray. And I'm actually going to be following this today as well with you. So we'll kind of be walking through just straight from the documentation or so here, just so you get a little bit more familiar with it. But I guess now I'm going to jump into 3ds Max. And I wish I could have that 135 Palisades project to use an example here, but we're going to be doing this lobby demo. And the first thing I just want to mention with 3ds Max is 3ds Max was actually the first application that we built digital spaces for. That's actually where it all came from, because this is what I use professionally. And it originally also came from building a plugin. Before we had our fancy optimizer that's all online, all the optimization was done locally in 3ds Max. And so we do still have a plugin or a Max script that I do encourage you to download and use. It's a really small file, and we give you instructions here. It's like any other Mac script, if you've used scripts before, how to install. But what this does is it will really export your scene for you. And so you're still going to have to do step 1 and 2 on your own, which is set up your cameras, render your images. But that step 3 to export your scene, we help you with that. And the reason for that is just because 3ds Max we really can get scene sizes that are in the hundreds of millions of polygons. And sometimes it is just better to do a little bit of the optimization in 3ds Max on your professional workstation because it'll just be faster. And then you can bring that exported file to digital spaces. And so this is here for you to use. And also same thing here, disclaimers. If there's any bugs in here, if you have any questions with it, of course, reach out to me, let me know. I'll get it patched up and fixed because this is code that I write myself and I wrote this myself. So I'll be your main point of contact on it. And what you can also do with this too, we have a main export button, but then in our advanced mode, you can get really crazy with your model. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later at the end of the presentation, but just kind of letting you know this is here, and I will show you a little bit how to use this. All right, but the main thing, let's do step one, set up your cameras. And I'm actually going to be running through this with Corona just because I am a bit more proficient with that. That's what I use professionally, but V-Ray, Corona are the exact same thing. So you should not have a problem if you are going to be using this with V-Ray. And I'll try to still give you hints for V-Ray as we move through here. Let's just get this situated. Okie dokie. So step one, we're going to set up our cameras. And so we just mentioned again, be sure that your cameras are named with this prefix DS underscore and then end in a number. And really the reason for this is the DS underscore, what that does is when you upload your model to digital spaces to use our optimizer, we do read your cameras to place all your hotspots. So we're a no-code solution. But FBXs are a mess of a file format. I'm sure you've experienced this if you're trying to bring your 3ds Max file to another program, where oftentimes FBXs actually cannot read like V-Ray cameras or Corona cameras or most cameras. It's a terrible file type. And same thing with DAEs and colladas can have trouble with it at times. And so just to make sure that we can always read your cameras when you bring it in, we do search for this prefix when you first upload your cameras. And so putting ES underscore on your cameras just guarantees that when you upload your file to us, we can read your cameras and we can verify that in the beginning. And then the reason why you should number them in a sequential order is because there's one step where you would have to link your cameras to your image. And we've just found the best way to do that is for them to have similar names or similar numbers as names. And I'll show you this too when we get to the upload stage, but that is really the reason why. So 2 connects to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4, 0 to 0. Okay, great. And then we do just label again, kind of common camera heights, what we think is best, but you can really place it at any height. But step one is we are just going to create, in this case, a Corona camera. But again, if you're using V-Ray, just set up a V-Ray camera. And right now I'm just going to kind of randomly place that. Let's turn off the ceiling and our environment, our site, our vegetation. Okay. Right. And then typically your cameras will come in as a perspective camera. But for Corona, we will have to switch this because we only accept those equirectangular 360s. In your projection and VR, you will have to switch this to spherical 360. And I believe how you do this in V-Ray is in your render settings in V-Ray. I believe you can change your camera to a out of a perspective and into a spherical 360. Let's see if I have that in the docs here. I hope I do. And if I don't, I'm sorry, and I will need to update this. I do not. Okay, I need to work on the V-Ray docs to get that in there. But you will need to change your camera for V-Ray to become a spherical 360 or an equirectangular. They often go by those two names. And then in this case, I am just going to untarget my camera. That's just a personal preference because that annoys me. And then we just need to make sure that our cameras are located at one of these common heights. And so I'm just going to find my floor. Oops. So you can even see here, my floor is really located low at negative 14 feet. So from the floor location, I'm going to now add in that height of 55 inches. Sweet. So there's going to be my camera height. And then now I have control on where I can place these. Oh, actually, I need to change my name. Instead of Corona camera, we'll call this like DS demo 1. And I'm going to hide my old names just to make this easier. Okay, great. And so I'm in control here. This is going to be every camera location I place is going to be a node that all the users move to. And so now that my camera's set up, I'm really just going to uh, copy it around. And I like to place in corners because a corner gives people a good opportunity to move in multiple directions. And then here we can have the user kind of move down the path. And I also try to keep them the same distance separated. I know I'm not really like measuring these too exact, but it is a comfortable experience for people when you don't have, say, these cameras are all located the same distance, and then you have one that really jumps across. That could be a little jarring for users, or they might get lost on where the next kind of marker is to jump to. And something here is I know we have this wall here. So maybe for this node location, though, I'm going to push it up more. So again, that kind of maximizes the ability for them to jump to a few other options. Maybe one in here, and there probably should be one more that maybe connects these guys. And up here. And really in the beginning of a project, I'm usually random with these, but then as you're working with your client or working internally and on a project, they're going to move uh, in time too, and that's totally okay if your cameras move between two versions. Like say we render this thing, we just do a clay render, we upload it to digital spaces, we check it out, we walk around, and then we get feedback internally or we get feedback from the client or whatever. We know we're going to change the design. Feel free on the next version to move your cameras around because we are built for you to constantly be updating your project. And like if we ever want to change the model, we can just come up to upload model, replace model. Same thing with the images. Come up, replace all, add more. And so you could just be coming through here. On some projects, we go through 3 rounds of feedback, we go through 6, we go through 10. We're constantly just like uploading new models, bringing in new panos. And so it's definitely built for changes to happen part of the visualization process. So always keep that in mind as you're building from the beginning. But really for the cameras, that's it. I mean, we're just placing 360 cameras around the scene. It's as simple as that. Oh, okay. We have a question. Um, does the orientation of the camera matter? If it's rotated 45 degrees, will that match? Okay. And Tanner, you have definitely been around for a while. It's a great question. Because in the beginning, yes, it really mattered. And that was like a big limitation that we had. And then, yes, exactly. Yep, exactly. When we first released, we were very, very specific on that. But that has since gone away. We've fixed that. And so now your rotation in your Z direction does not matter. So we can always be rotating this. So if I was to like hop into this camera view, so like feel free to rotate these cameras around, point them in whatever direction, like as you're doing test renders or whatnot. But what you can still not do is rotate your camera in the Z or X direction, which means if I was to take this camera and rotate it out around the Y direction, which makes it really goofy. That does not work. And then same thing as if we rotate your camera up or down, that will not work. And so we can accept rotations, but they can only be from the Z axis, if that makes sense. Is that cool? Okay, very cool. And if you do ever have issues with that, let me know. Because actually just last Friday, I think it was, we just updated some code that fixed that. There was like a few bugs. Because sometimes it's like what the issue was last week, it was like FBX files from 2013. We had our Y and Z axes flipped, of course, common computer graphics issue. And that was kind of breaking some of these rotations. So it was a little bug. We fixed it in a day, but it can happen from now and then. So it should work. If it doesn't, let me know. We'll get it patched up. But yes, you can now rotate your camera around, which is so great. Yeah, I was waiting years to get that done, uh, but we finally figured it out. Okay, very cool. So the next step is just to render, and this is render the same way you render anything. Oh, I'm sorry, one more question. How do you make your initial camera face into the room, or does this fix it? Your initial camera, when you say face into the room, um, maybe I just might need maybe a little, do you mind explaining that a little bit more? Okay. Okay. So this would be when you upload. Okay, so let me repeat the question then for anybody watching in the future. The question is, how do you make your initial camera face into the room so it doesn't face a wall? And I believe that question is, and if you've been on the platform and used it, that would be, maybe it might be best that I answer that when we get to the upload stage, but just for a quick tip, you have your panos and uploaded. They're connected to a camera. Great. Up here at the top, you have a start location. And so you can either pick your panos or one of your locations. And I'll talk about locations in a minute here too. But locations are a way to actually give a human readable name to your panos. And you can tag the same location in multiple panos as well. And do I have like a good example of that running? Oh, it actually is in this one. All of these here are locations that have been set up linked to these panos. And so how you would then, and maybe it would be best if I actually do this in this project. So it doesn't matter which way your camera is facing when you render, because you will fix it when you upload. Okay, so we will have our panos. I have my scenes tagged or my locations tagged. And so how this works is, see on the kitchen, it's labeled 3 panos have the kitchen. Only one pano has the star. And so what the star means is that's the pano you're going to jump to when you select on that location. And then when you star a location, we bring up this black dot. And what that is the look at direction. And so if I was to change this look at direction for the entry, I'm going to look a different way. And same thing with the kitchen. If I like move this towards the cabinet here, when you go to that location, you're going to be looking at this direction. And so now how do you set the initial location when people start the experience? You would do that by first set up a location. Here, I just call this location entry. I set up a look at direction. And then I say at the top here, this is the master start location. And I say the entire experience starts at the entry. And so now when I go to the view tab, we're going to start at that entry location and we're going to be viewing it at the direction that that ball was placed at. I can show you here again. So if I go back in on the entry, if I take this and I now kind of point it towards the kitchen and I go back to the view, when the experience starts, I should now be looking towards the kitchen. Does that answer your question? Awesome. And then last thing on that is you might have multiple scenes. And so how do we know where to start your entire digital space? And that is up here, right next to the publish button. Before you make it live, this is a scene drop down. I only have one scene in here, so it's just going to be the interior. But on the last example, how I had the lobby, I had the shotgun room, the model room, I would see those here. And so from here, I would select this is where the overall experience starts. And when you select on a scene here, it's then going to start on the scenes starting location, which again comes from the locations from the star see here. So I guess it could be a little confusing, but we did find that to be kind of the best way to really target uh, how to start all these. And then again, when you're in the experience and you jump around to these locations, the panel we end up on and the view direction that we're looking at is really just coming from here. Tag a location, star it, place this marker to for the look at direction. Okay, great. So again, that does not come from you rendering. You can render your camera pointed whatever direction that you want. So second step then is to render. And again, this is the same for V-Ray or Corona. And the main thing to keep in mind here is just in your render settings, be sure that you have your aspect ratio on a 2:1. So we're going to lock that at 2. And you really can render that at whatever resolution you like. I do recommend sticking within powers of 2. So like a 4096 by 2048, a 2048 by 1024. And that is just for like, again, basic 3D rendering. Like it's the same reason why you should have your textures kind of at as a power of 2. Like we do some anti-aliasing and some mapping in a way, not as fancy as like how a game engine would run it, but it still is going to be good to render things at a power of 2. But if you don't, it really doesn't matter. You can render at 3000 pixels. Sometimes I render at 6144 instead of in 819, 81. That says 8182. I think that should be 8192. Um, but the yeah, the 6K works for me. And then often what I do with clients too, this is like, maybe I shouldn't share this secret, but like I'll render a 4K and then I throw it through some like AI enhancer that brings it maybe up to 6K or 8K or something. Um, so yeah, resolution really doesn't matter. It's just your image aspect ratio. And then when you save your file, again, just be sure that you are saving your image names similar with that same sequential sequence. So like this camera name is 001, so my image name should be the 001 as well. So just make sure that you have those similar, and then feel free to batch render. Same way you would batch render anything. I submit ours to the cloud using Ranch Render, and they make that super easy just to like render all these cameras. But really on the rendering process, totally up to you. However, your company does it, you do it, and whatnot. And if you ever need any help with that or speeding up the process, let me know because the script that we have, I can update this to maybe even help people on setting up cameras or setting up render settings or something. I'm super open to playing a bit more around with the script or adding more features. So let me know if rendering ever becomes an issue or whatnot, or if you find yourself doing a repetitive task, let me know and maybe we can script it. And what these will pop out as. Okay, so somebody's saying in the chat, a good tip for the camera name is using the rename tool. That would totally help. And there, I guess, do you just mean like I can take all these, right click, rename, I can say add a prefix to everything. So maybe if I named my camera as something else at the beginning, and then I can also add the number at the end with that, that can help a lot. But I think because this tool is so simple and kind of just built into 3ds Max, we probably won't add that one to the script. But this is definitely a good resource to kind of come in and do that if your camera names are named something all funky to begin with, or if you forget. Totally. And what I think I am going to do, oh, one more thing. Yep. Okay. Exactly. Yeah, that is a good tip. And I think this is either something I still need to build in to the plugin, or maybe I just did and I just need to ship it. But a new feature will be coming soon is when you do use our plugin to export, I will check and make sure that your cameras have this prefix, and I'll yell at you if they don't. So that way, when you export using this, you can at least be guaranteed that when you bring your model into digital spaces, it will be named correctly. And how this tool does work, and I'm just going to trust on this tool that you can just read the documentation um, to learn how to install it. Pretty simple instructions here. It installs really the same way as other scripts that you've maybe used in the past. But our step 3 here is to export to Corona, or from Corona. And really, we do say to use you just hit the export button. It's that easy once you have it installed. But the things to keep in mind, which are the same lessons I had earlier, which are on here, for instance, turn the ceiling on. We need that. And then I've already hidden my site, my vegetation. So that's just the way I organize my model when we are working, when we know we're going to make a digital space. Um, I just put them on a layer. So I'm going to turn off my site layer. I'm going to turn off my vegetation layer. And then I can turn off my environment layer. And so here I really just have already isolated out what needs to go into the platform to be able to walk around. And then here I am just going to ditch these cameras because I just set these up for the demo, but what I had pre-rendered was not these. It was from these here. So I need to make sure that my cameras are on, so we export those. And from here, we're good. And we can see that this model right now has about 4 million polygons. And so at the end, when it's on the platform, it will have under 100,000. So we're going to do a massive reduction to this model. And then a few other things that I've already kind of done in this model is, for instance, these are proxies, like the sofa, but I decided to leave it as a mesh because the user is going to walk really near it. But like these stools in the back, the user doesn't really walk around these, they're going to walk next to them. And so I left these as a box because whatever as your proxy is set to box or mesh, when we export the model, it's going to be meshed as that. So these will be meshed as a box. So instead of me having like these fancy detailed bar stools, I just turn them to box because the user won't really see them. They're kind of on the side. But then the objects that the user does walk around, I'm going to leave those more as a mesh for a better experience. Kind of also see that here, like this coffee table, I know the user is not going to walk around it. And then also the coffee table already looks kind of boxy. And so it's okay if we just leave it as a box. And then like some of these are the vegetation. So it's like, do we really need to go and optimize this leafy plant if a user is really never going to be walking around it? It's pushed up against a wall. And so we can save our poly count of those 99,000 polys for something a bit more important, like maybe the sofa that we want to walk next to, or some of these more like detailed wire chairs, or just the architecture in general. And so we do have an optimizer that will bring this down to 99,000, but feel free to help us out a little bit, say, on that aspect, where, maybe just don't bring in every single object if you don't need to, because it will make your whole experience a bit better if you're just kind of boxing some things when you can, meshing things where it's necessary or whatnot. And then keep that in mind also as you're building your project. If you know from the beginning that this will be a digital space, kind of keep some of those things in mind. Like even up here, all of these are all hanging plants. But like, look at these meshes. That's insane. And we're never going to walk by it. And so it's like box it. That's fine. User will never notice in the experience that that's a box. Okay, but nonetheless, this looks good. Our ceiling's on. We have our cameras on. We've eliminated all the site models. And so I'm just going to be able to hit this export button. Oh, I've made changes to my scene. Do I want to save them? And I'm actually okay with saving this. That's fine. We can save. And then this is just going to export for us. It should just take a minute. But in the meantime, let's hop to the platform and we can start making this as a project. So on the dashboard, I'm just going to hit plus digital space and I'll give it a name. This is my 3ds Max demo. So the first thing you do when you make a digital space is we actually create a scene for you, which is just untitled scene, and you upload your images and you upload your model. And I've pre-rendered all of these panos for this project. And I'm just going to take them all and drag them in. Oh, of course, because 3ds Max is loading the file right now. I cannot drag. Okay. Let's see here. We're going to go to D17, 12, lobby images. Okay, here we are. And I think our model has been exported and we're just reloading the file. So when the model's done exporting, this window just popped up on my other screen, but it will just pop you up to your export folder. And this is the one here, 123 at 2 p.m. Okay, great. Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't know if you ever see that, experience that issue. When 3ds Max is loading a file, you cannot drag and drop anything on your PC. It's so weird. Maybe I'm the only one with that. All right, but we can just file explore it. That's our file. Great. Let's upload that. And these were 13 panos, maybe at like 10 megabytes each. So like 130 megabytes we're uploading of panos. So that just took a second, but no big deal. And now they're just processing. When the pano is spinning like that, that means we're just kind of converting it. And then when you upload your model after it uploads, the first thing we do is search for your cameras. And we search with that prefix DS. So if your cameras do not have DS in the name, you might see this thing kind of come up and say, we cannot find your cameras, search another prefix. But here they all are. Looks good, so we can just hit continue. And now we're going to optimize that model to the 100,000 triangles. And then because we've already found the cameras and we started converting, the panos are done now. So we can actually start connecting. So I'm just going to connect pano 0 to 0. And another tool that we're going to have next is we're going to make this thing smart. And if your panos do end in the same number, we'll just automatically connect them. Because this part is just a tad annoying. But it's pretty simple if you have these named properly. Sweet. And then here we could start setting up locations if we want to, like this would be the entry. And that's going to naturally star, and that's a fine look at direction. This I can call like, I think the study. I'll link this to the study. This could be the lounge. I'll link that to the lounge. The lounge can maybe look in. This could be the lounge. And just for the sake of time, that's enough. That's good. And then start location, I'm going to have as the entry. And our model's been processed, and I've hit the I. You'll see, yep, we're right under 100,000 polys. So we went from 4 million to this 100,000. Just shake that. Here it is optimized. You can see again, those proxy items were boxes. Then these got optimized quite nicely. So we can hit the view tab. And if everything worked right, we should just be able to walk around. Yep, it's working. Here we are. And you can see, again, we started at that start location, looking at the direction that I chose. And then I just like to rename this to like maybe the lobby. That's what this one is. And then from here, the last thing that we can do now is to publish it. And that is then where our payment plans do come in. So everything is free to upload, play in the editor, build the experience. But once it's kind of ready to go, ready to share it with the client, we do have a one-time upgrade fee per digital space. And so these are not monthly recurring fees at all. This you just pay once and it's yours forever. And how those would work is they start at $24, and that gives you 5 gigabytes of uploads and 5,000 views. And then really payment plans beyond that are just for more uploadability and more views. And like we could see here, I've uploaded on this project 209 megabytes out of the 5 gigs. And I would say that's actually one other reason why you should use our exporter tool here, because this will actually give you a smaller file size than if you were just to file export on your own. And so you can kind of like save money that way. So because you can get more uploads if you're using this export tool or so. Oh, I have one more question in the chat. Is the script limited to 2021 and newer? And that is, if I say that in the documentation, that's only because internally, that's all I've tested it on. So, the script should work. I don't think we use any super advanced functions in there. I think most of the functions we use in there are pretty common and have been around for a while in 3ds Max. Um, So I would say try it on an older version and let me know. It would be amazing. And I'll then update the documentation on the versions. In there, it's only because like I actually just don't have like the team size and even like, to be honest, maybe like the money to buy all these 3ds Maxes and doing that. Yeah, okay, that'd be so great. Just let me know, try it out, and if you get an error, ping me, and then I'll go download whatever version you have and I'll inspect from there. But I am just gonna kind of do that one on demand. So as users find errors and scream at me, I'll go fix them. So yeah, try it out on other versions of 3ds Max. That would be so great. And then it should work also on Corona and V-Ray proxies. And then it also works on Railclone and Force Pack. And you can kind of see that in the advanced mode. We work with, because we can change your force pack proxies. Say you have everything in like a point cloud or a mesh. When we export, we can convert it all to like a plane or a box or a plant. Same thing with your rail clones. We can bring those to a mesh or box. And then overall proxies, we can do that too. So this does work with Corona, V-Ray, Force Pack, rail clone. So if you also have another plugin that you use that is giving you errors or something like that because we don't have it built in, let me know. I'll do a quick fix patch, and I'll get that off for you. And then one last thing I just want to show is to publish this. And so I'm just on the back end kind of gonna upgrade myself, which by the way, everyone that is on this call, uh, when you make your next digital space you make, email me and tell me what the name of that is, and I'm going to go ahead and upgrade that for you, so you don't have to pay for your next one. So you can just do it for free. Because I would hate to give you a demo here and then be like, go make one and pay me. Um, so let me know what your project name is, and I'll get that off for you. So here I just did that on the back end. So now when I refresh this page, that error will go away at the bottom, and now my publish button is open. And this is really what it looks like once you would pay in the future. And so my last step here is I'm just going to hit the publish button. And this is how we make it go live. And so now I can open this in a new tab. And great, there's the link. I can copy the link from here, and I'm just going to paste this in the chat. Or I can get the embed code. And this is how I put this into my own website as well. And if you have any questions on the embed code, if you don't have like a web developer you work with or so, let me know on that as well. And I'll be happy to help you on your site, your client's website, or anything. I do have documentation on this, but like, everybody uses like web or what is it, Squarespace or Wix, or they have like, there's so many of these different ones which I don't have documentation for, but I'll be happy to help you on this. And then that's it. And if you were to make an update, so like this is published, we gave it to the client, and then say you come in and you're working on the next update for your client, you're changing out panos, you're moving the model around, you're adding another scene, anything that's happening in the editor stays in the editor until you publish again. And so any change you make in here, your client will never see it. But once you hit that publish button, that same link that they have will just be automatically updated. And so that's kind of your way of then pushing your updates to the client is really through this publish button. We'll do that. And so I know that has been an hour now, and I'm sure you have limited time. And that really does conclude the main walkthrough. But if you do have any other questions really outside of this, or there were some features I didn't go into, which is like how to change the time of day, how to really add more scenes, um, and I don't know, I'm sure there's other things I'm kind of missing. So if you want any more information, feel free on the main website, just on Digital Spaces, book a demo with me. This again goes straight to me. Book a time. I'll be happy to work with you. Or again, if you ever have any questions, chat me, bottom right corner, email me at Nathaniel at, or this says support. Well, you can email me there, but also my first name, Nathaniel. I think I had it on this page at digitalspaces.io. Or you can even find me on Instagram or so. And are there any other last questions before I kind of really wrap up here? All right, one more question. Okay, so the question is, what is the feasibility or as a feature request to allow others to see the activity in your space, like as a real-time collaborative view? Totally, 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 totally. That's so possible. And it's something that we were working on. A lot of these features, what happened is when we first released the beta for 3ds Max, we were ready to rock and roll in these features, like viewing in real time, or like the markers and using those as interactive objects. But uh, we got so much feedback in the beginning of everyone being like, what about SketchUp? What about Blender? What about Rhino and Revit? And I kind of had to make the decision because we have a small team, limited resources of like, what do we do? Do we build out all these features and leave everyone else behind and then go back and build for those other applications? Or do we do that now? And it was kind of like a hard pill to swallow, but it was like, you know what? We have to do it now. And so we actually kind of put on pause all new features and we went back and we rebuilt everything. And that's when we actually built the model optimizer and how we accept files from like FBX and DAE and USD, and that's really just for everyone else. That's for Revit and SketchUp and Blender. And now that we have that built and we're really releasing that, now we can really rock and roll with like the feature, for instance, the collaborative view. And to be honest, we actually have that code like written. Uh, we have this like whole on our GitHub, this whole socket infrastructure and you can see it was last updated July of 22. It's like this has been built for years. Like we have it. We just made them really make sure that our base core, everything is working. And then we're just going to start turning on these features and really rock and roll on that. And so collaborative viewing coming soon, interactive markers totally coming soon as well. And then last thing with that question, you're saying if both the client and you are in the space at the same time, if you want to walk through together. That's right. And really, it really isn't a huge ask. We have that built. Uh, we have it like 80% built. We just need to finish it, and then we need to test it, and then we need to launch it. And so it's way closer than it may seem. Because yeah, we would love to also have that ability. That's going to be so sweet to have. I cannot wait. And then one other feature we're going to have soon. You'll see here it says animation. And what that will be is you'll be able to create a predetermined path where you look and where you move to. And so your client will also have the ability to have that animation. And so if they're not somebody that can like really walk around on their own, they can have a button in here to hit the play button and it will just automatically kind of self-guide or tour them through. So that's another feature that's going to be coming soon, say. But again, we just wanted to make sure that this base infrastructure, like how the publishing works, the uploading, make sure our servers are set, we're optimizing the model properly, our rotations are correct. It's just like, it just did take, unfortunately, quite a while to make that perfect. But my attitude was like, that needs to be perfect because I do not want to be focused on like bringing all these great features if the underlying core like infrastructure doesn't work. And so it took a while, but I think we're there. And so, yeah, definitely be on the lookout for some new features and keep them coming, by the way, as well. Like if you have any other ideas or something like that, keep hitting me with it. The question is during the animation, can the user look around at the same time or just be stuck on a path? Great question. Because that one we actually have not built yet. We haven't even started on that one. And so that would be a great option though. I should put that in my notes on that. Because how fun would that be? We basically just like make the roller coaster track that we bring users on, but they get to look around. It'll be like the small world ride at Disney World, say. That might be the best way to do it. And that way they know, like, we're going to move you through the kitchen, then here's through the living room or something like that. I like that a lot. Maybe they can even stop or so. And I'll definitely keep, everyone updated as we're working on that and all too. But that's a really great question, great request. I like that a lot. Any other questions? Awesome. All right. Great. Well, I'm just kind of getting in the chat. No more questions. Thank you. And I say thank you, everyone. I mean, uh, it really is an awesome feeling to know that people are actually using this now and they're getting some use out of it because we built this internally and if for a long time it was in a beta and we're just, really it wasn't working and we just wanted to get it right. And so it really means the world to me to have other professionals, 3D artists, designers, architects all around the world interacting with this and using it. So I thank you both and really everyone out there that's listening to this in the future. Thank you for being part of Digital Spaces as well. And I hope to hear from you soon. And I would love to see also, like, another thing, contact me when it breaks, but also contact me when you make something awesome. Send it to me. I would love to see it. I love nerding out about visualization and architecture too. All right, but I'm gonna stop the recording and I guess get going now. So thank you all. We'll be in touch.